have been referring to the fight against corruption as a war against corruption. And this week, the drums of war have been loud and loud. They have been heard in all corners of this country and beyond. William Samoei Ruto has come out openly to say that this war is targeting him. And this war is to prevent him from ascending to the presidency in 2022. Today, I want us to look at this and answer the question, could this war against corruption be Ruto's undoing? Could this fight against corruption be the thing that will stop William Samoei Ruto from becoming president? Before we go far, let us accept that in politics, perceptions are much more powerful than reality. If people perceive you to be corrupt, and if being corrupt will prevent you from getting a national office, then that will be so, irrespective of whether or not indeed you are corrupt. When it comes to Ruto, it is true in my thinking and estimation that this corruption war will prevent him from going to State House unless he changes course. Why? Let's deal with the perceptions. The perception on the politics of 2022 and on corruption and anything else will be about the three men who will shape the history and destiny of this country by determining the politics of this country from 2022. The three men are Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, and William Ruto. Now, since corruption is being presented as a monster that is destroying this country, then whoever of these three gentlemen, the gentlemen who will determine our politics in 2022 and beyond, whoever is associated with the destruction of this country through theft and plunder will definitely pay the price. Now, let's look at these three gentlemen purely from a perception point of view. Uhuru Kenyatta. Generally, Kenyans agree that Uhuru Kenyatta has not stolen anybody's gods. It is a generally accepted view that Uhuru Kenyatta may have inherited a lot of money from Jomo Kenyatta and his mother, Mama Ngina Kenyatta. But as a person, Kenyans will agree generally that he's never stolen anybody's shilling and has no reason to even steal from the public. Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga has told us, yeye ni nyeupe kama pamba. Whereas it may not be entirely true. But again, the general perception in this country that if you are looking for a corrupt person, you are unlikely to look for Raila in Bondo or wherever he is, or Capitol Hill. That is among the few politicians in this country you cannot very easily associate with corruption. A few people have tried to talk about molasses, kazi kwa vijana, pesa kwa wazee, but it really doesn't hold. So that honestly speaking, for Uhuru and Raila Odinga, corruption is not something you are going to associate with them in politics. And again, we're talking about perceptions. That leaves William Samoei Ruto. The way things have been created in this, presented in this country, the narrative that has been sold, especially from beginning with the handshake, is that one, if you are looking for a thief in this country, you will go to Sugoi and you get a man called William Samoei Ruto. It has also been presented as number two, that corruption is destroying this country, that theft of public resources is destroying this country, and that the future of this country is highly compromised because of corruption. And this corruption has been presented squarely and directly at the footsteps of William Samoei Ruto, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. So yes, it is true that this corruption monster, especially as a national narrative, is going to destroy somebody who stands the highest chance of being president, and that is William Samoei Ruto. I know for a fact that Kenyans have never bothered to find out how rotten an individual is, how corrupt that person is, when it gets to electing our leaders. But for two reasons, this narrative is changing. This perception is changing. The rate at which we are destroying this country through plunder, through theft that we call corruption, and the final product of that process, we are getting to a point where it will not be business as usual. That Kenyans are not going to ignore the corruption that's going on in this country, because the theft that's going on in this country has a direct bearing on Kenyans. The cost of living is unbearable. Education in this country is destroyed. Kenyan children cannot go to school, and all because the money meant for this has been stolen. Kenyans are losing loved ones because the health infrastructure and system in this country has collapsed. This is directly responsible for what people might do in 2022. So unlike in the past where corruption was just something, today we are dealing with corruption that is so colossal, so destructive, that Kenyans will, in 2022, base their decision on the kind of destruction and corruption that will have gone on. Now, if this corruption is being blamed on William Samoei Ruto, I don't see him surviving. Secondly, by the time we get to 2022, the plunder and theft in this country, the thing we are calling corruption, will have messed up this country, this economy so much that there will almost no country. And therefore, for William Samoei Ruto, my advice is this: unless you successfully fight corruption, unless you successfully fight the perception that you are the most corrupt individual in this country, you can forget about the presidency. Because, like I've said, the destruction, the pain, today there is collective national anger against what's going on in Baringo and Turkana. The shame we get as Kenyans when in the international media, Kenyans are paraded eating wild fruits, dying of hunger. This national anger is directed at people who are perceived to have caused this kind of suffering to fellow Kenyans. And if this suffering is associated with theft, which in turn is associated with you, William Samoei Ruto, I can see you have a problem. You have a problem because, unlike in the past when corruption and theft never was used to decide and make decisions, this time, the rate at which things are moving, that will be what will determine who becomes president. And yet, the people you are running against are perceived as clean and corruption-free. So you might begin asking yourself, what do you do? Because, for example, like denying that it was not 21, it was 7 billion. Denying that Kenyans are dying when they are dying. It seems to be confirming the perception that Kenyans have that indeed it is you who is corrupt. So you'll need to change your tact. And do remember that if people say you need money to become president, and therefore you are looking for billions, it's part of the narrative that because you think you'll need billions to be president, then you go for those billions. A friend of mine asked me to remind you of Mark chapter, I think 8, verse 36 or something like that. And being a church-going Christian with a CU background to boot, you'll know that in that Holy Writ, it is said thus, what shall it benefit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? So equally, one would ask, what will it benefit a Kenyan who look for all the billions, and yet by the time they get to that presidency, the country is destroyed, and they themselves have been consumed by the same. So while we are dealing with perception, it is nevertheless important for William Samoei Ruto to ensure that this narrative that is destroying him is taken care of, because there will be no point of you having everything as it is assumed you are looking for. And in come 2022, you've destroyed yourself through these narratives and even destroyed the country.